Hey guys, it's Amy at Table Flipping Housewife. I'm so happy you joined me today. The project I'm going to be starting are these two mismatched bedside tables with storage. I don't know if you have this challenge, but I tend to buy a storage piece like this individually in hopes that I'll find a match for them. And that rarely happens, right? And that's what happened here. I bought this darker one at a Goodwill probably 6 weeks ago. This one I found at a thrift store yesterday. And although there are some elements that are different, I think overall they make a really good match. They are the same height. They both have this trimmed out piece here. They both have round bunt feet, and they both have 3 sets of drawers. Now, what I'm going to do over here to make them match even better is I'm going to add 2 knobs to the top drawer, just like this one. I'm also going to cut some trim and create some beveled areas on those 3 drawers. After doing that and giving them a good paint job and matching hardware, I think they will make a beautiful set, and I hope you will think so too. So if you'd like to see me turn these around, then sit back and enjoy. Before I do any scuff sanding, I thought I'd go around the piece and see if there's anything I can start filling with putty. Some of these seams are gaping open, which isn't noticeable now, but once painted, it would be very obvious. So I'm going to fill those up as well as any other nicks. Now that the repairs have dried, I'm going to use a 150 grit sand pad to scuff sand. Scuff sanding is super important because it gives a slight scratch to the shiny surface of your furniture. Those tiny scratches give something for the primer and the paint to adhere to. The washi tape marks where I wanted to place the trim, so I started measuring where I needed to cut. Now, if you don't have a miter saw, these miter shears on Amazon are only $22. Now, note the safety goggles. I always wear them, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm making my first 45-degree cut. Now watch what happens. I had forgotten to apply painter's tape, which prevents ragged cuts and flyaway wood missiles. Good thing I was wearing eye protection. So I measured where I needed to cut, wrapped that area with tape, then measured again so I could mark the tape. I swung the blade over to the left for that 45-degree cut. Essentially, each cut piece of wood needs to be a trapezoid in order to create miter joints. Score! This tiny piece is all I have left. I fitted the trim with wood glue. I wanted to make sure that I had the placement correct aesthetically, but also so that it wouldn't impact the way the drawers opened and closed. I'll be using some wood filler to fill in the seams. This was the first time I've attempted to do this. I have yet a lot to learn in making those angular cuts on my miter saw, but overall, I'm very pleased. I just finished spraying my first coat of primer on. You can already see with the primer on how they're matching up so well as a good pair of nightstands. Now over here, I already marked where the new knobs are going to go with a nail. That way when they're painted and done, I'll know where to put in the hardware, but I think they look pretty doggone good. Yay. All right. I have 2 coats of primer on these pieces. Where I put the new trim with that raw wood, I spot sprayed 3 coats of primer. In between each coat, I used a very high grit sand pad to sand, and then I wiped off the dust in between. Now I'm getting ready to paint, and so I definitely want to sand everything, dust it off, so that when I go to spray the paint, it'll be super smooth. I'm now changed in my paint clothes and I'm ready to go. I have used Benjamin Moore Advanced Paint once before, and I absolutely love this paint because once it's dried, it is virtually impossible to scratch off as long as you have properly prepared the surface that's being painted, which I have. The color I'm using today is Briarwood. I wanted a gray beige. It's this one right here. So I'm going to load that into my sprayer. I'm going to filter it. Even though it's brand new paint, I'm going to filter it into my Earlex 5500 canister. The can doesn't say anything about thinning it or not, but I'm going to because it's a very thick paint. So I am going to thin it with a little bit of water. It does take 4 to 6 hours to dry to the touch. So you have to have a little extra time when you use this paint. The challenge I have right now is that in our area we have horrible pollen. I'm going to do the first coat out in the backyard, and if it leaves a gritty surface, I'm going to sand between coats anyway, and I'll do the second one in the garage. This is the Earlex 5500. It's been replaced with the 5700, very similar. And it makes painting so fast, and it gives a flawless finish. So if you can afford to look into a starter sprayer, reach out to me in the comments and I'll let you know what sprayers I use first. And I think this one would not be that difficult for you either. All right, I'm going to go ahead and spray the second one in much the same way, off camera. I put these on their backs last night, so I was looking at different hardware to go with it, and overall it looks really good. Clearly I missed some areas here, but now that the feet are back on, I'll be able to get under here. This paint is in a satin finish, and so unlike some of the others I've worked with, there really is no need to lightly sand in between. With the exception of the top, I'm feeling a couple of things that landed in the paint while it was drying, so I'm just going to very, very lightly sand them off, dust them, and then proceed to putting on that second coat. Oh yeah. That's terrific. I found that painter's tape is the best thing to remove bugs from freshly painted wet surfaces. There are mixed reviews as to whether or not you need to put a top coat on Benjamin Moore Advance. I'm going to put at least 2 coats of this poly on it simply because it does take 4 weeks to fully cure, and I'm reselling this. So I have already filtered poly into my canister. You want to tint your poly because adding a little bit of paint, which is what I mean by tinting, it's just a little bit, will help prevent any streaking or haziness when you spray it on. It's very warm today, and you've heard me talking about pollen because I am doing this in the month of April. Not ideal for spraying poly, but I always spray it to eliminate any brush strokes. So we're just gonna hope that the poly doesn't land in the sprayed on top coat. When I work in a limited space like this, I always do the inner two sides of the two pieces first, so that I can then push them together and have more room to do the rest. I spray 2 coats of poly, lightly sanding and dusting in between. So I just finished working on some hardware. Once they dry, I'll put them in the side pieces and then I'll be done. I had some silver and black hardware in my stash that I loved against the color of the side tables. I just didn't have enough. So I found a large bag of these beautiful silver knobs off of Facebook Marketplace. Who knew? The plethora of knobs and hardware you could get off of Facebook Marketplace, just so you know if you didn't know. But what I did just now was I brushed on some black acrylic paint and wiped off the excess to get that silver black contrast in the hardware, just like the one from my stash that I liked. Once it dries, I'm going to spray it with a clear spray paint to seal in that black paint, and then I'll be done. This was a really fun project for me. Let me know if by adding all of the trim, I made them a more cohesive pair. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content, and give me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear your feedback. Until next time, guys, see you later.